Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
Episode 91.
How about that?
Woo! Here we are now, post Seahawks.
Yeah.
But post Olympics, too.
I mean, so much going on in Seattle and, quite frankly, world sports in 26. Got the World Cup coming to Seattle later this year on top of that. What a time. I said this. It could be the best sports year ever in Seattle history. If things, you could already make that argument with the Seahawks winning it all in the World Cup coming here, but other things that could come down the line, whether that's off the field, off the court, off the field of play. I said field twice, but you get the idea.
It's okay.
Or if it is another championship.
You just mentioned the World Cup. There was news here in the last week that the World Cup organizing committee is going to spread out their original plans.
Right,
spread them
I
out.
like that.
It's not just Seattle Center. They're going to be having fan fests in 3 different locations, including the Waterfront Pacific Place, which is interesting, in downtown Seattle, instead of Westlake Park, which is under construction, and then down at Victory Hall. So that's going to be a change that we've talked about those changes here on Inside the Arena. Originally, all the focus was on Seattle Center, but I think we're seeing cities now evolve their plans regarding the World Cup based on other factors as well.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk about it in that way, I love that it was broken up just from a simple standpoint. It shows off more of our city. Full disclosure, dinner break, when the weather's maybe a little bit warmer, it's warming up now.
Yeah.
I still love going to the waterfront, just hanging out.
Yeah, no, it's
and they did such an amazing job down there. Let's show it off.
It's going to be fun. And so that news came out this week. And later on in this show, I think an important conversation with Dave Grosby, who is a lot of people affectionately call the Groz, longtime sports radio host here in Seattle. I've known him for a long time. Sports Radio 950 KJR, worked at 710 Cairo as well. He's done a lot of things in the community, and he is trying to raise attention, and bravely so, for an upcoming event, as Dave has suffered for the last several years from Parkinson's disease, and he is living through it and talking about how he is living through it and giving advice to others or who may have family members that are dealing with Parkinson's. And so that important conversation coming up a bit later in the show.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those things that makes you stop and put stuff in perspective. Not to be cliche about it, but yeah, I can't wait to hear it.
Well, that's coming up with Dave Grosby. Also, we're going to talk about the politics involving the Sonics right now.
Because I'm interested in this.
Yeah, in the Supersonic Minute. But what we always like to do to start the show every week, if I can find the right button.
Right? That one?
Wait, is that one or that one? There we go.
Okay, I had the wrong one.
Bill has installed so many buttons here. Producer Bill. It's 4 corners. What's good, what's bad, off the ice, off the court, off the field of play.
What I really like right now is we talked about it. There is essentially no Seahawks offseason from the standpoint if you're a fan. You win the Super Bowl February 8th. Well, here we are 2.5, 3 weeks later, and boom, here's the scouting combine, which means something because as John Schneider put it, it's become, still scouting the 2026 draft class, meeting with those players, but much more, it has become a meeting place with agents about signing free agents. And we know free agency starts in about a week and a half. And it also becomes a place where you potentially work out trades with other GMs. And so the reason why this is my positive is we're at that little window of the year where everybody has the weight of the season off their shoulders, not just the Super Bowl champs, but everybody. And the idea there is you get a lot more information. I mean, John Schneider has just been a treasure trove of information at the combine, from talking about how, you remember the Ravens beat the Seahawks 37-3 in Carroll's last year. And he's like, whoa, like what just hit us? And that's what kind of led them to at least look at Mike McDonald, not knowing necessarily that was going to be Pete Carroll's end at that moment. But wait, that guy beat us pretty good a month ago. And then he was talking about how the process of they decided to sign Sam Darnold over, they were seriously thinking about maybe picking a rookie to lead the program. And you think about they were 18th overall in 2025. That's Jackson Dart. That's a number of guys that were pretty darn good on that list. But they ultimately decided that Sam Darnold was a competitor, a winner, and his experience outweighed any rookie. And gosh, what a fateful decision that was. So I guess my positive is we're at this window right now where you're starting, everybody's loosened up. You can see the inner makings of how a Super Bowl champion was built pretty darn quickly here in Seattle.
Speaking of being loosened up, it was funny to hear John Schneider also acknowledge that maybe he was loosened up in some way at the Super Bowl ceremony talking about K9.
And so, I knew he was kidding, maybe because I interact with him a lot. And I knew he was kidding the second he said it, but a lot of people thought he was serious.
Yeah.
And he admitted, he's like, I was just a little nervous up there. And we know what that means. And gosh, you know what? I love John Schneider, the general manager, as most 12s do. I like the person even more. Good dude. Does a lot for the autism community in Seattle. And I think that when you have somebody like that, that's like a good person out of the office, it kind of sets that culture a little bit. And we've seen that. Mike McDonald is very, very similar to the work he does. And now you're seeing it trickle onto the players and things like that. So it's a really cool vibe in addition to a Lombardi Trophy going on in VMAC right now.
Well, I'll tell you what else is good this week. Hockey is having a moment.
Oh, yeah, it is.
With the titles by both the women's U.S. hockey team and the men's U.S. hockey team back in Italy. Great moments and great games for the gold medal finals. Of course, we have seen our Torrent here in Seattle well represented on that U.S. team. I know that you were at a big welcome home ceremony as well. Captain America, Hillary Knight, going out with a bang. Also personally had a great Olympic moment as well. It's been fun to see, especially with everybody still talking about some HBO show at the same time. Heated rivalry, and now the Kraken get back at it right on the cusp of the playoffs. I think it's been fun to see objectively all the attention on hockey, Seattle, and globally.
And it couldn't have come at a better time for the sport in our city, right? With so much attention. You had the Mariners go on a deep run. You had the Seahawks winning it all. And boom, right at the end of that, the Kraken returns to the ice. And of course, so does the Torrent on the heels of these gold medals. It's a big thing for the Kraken and Torrent as well. And Hannah Bilka let me hold her gold medal. How cool is that?
That is cool.
I didn't ask for it. I wasn't going to dare. And she said, held it. I'm like, oh, you want me to hold it? Yeah.
How heavy was it?
It was, I once about 14 years ago held a silver medal. So I knew they were heavy in general. So I was like, that was pretty heavy.
And you didn't break it? Because I know some of these have been...
people
there's been some problems with
that. I was incredibly delicate. I didn't even grab it by the lanyard, so to speak, whatever you call that. I just grabbed where it meets the metal so I could hold the metal and be very safe about it. I held it like I held my child when he was a newborn.
That would be the worst, dropping a trophy or breaking somebody's gold medal.
Could you imagine?
Yeah. No, I've seen it. I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what don't you like this week?
It's similar to what I've said. Last week I went on one of my rants, and I was talking with Beth Knox. And she's like, "Oh, you had that rant last week." I'm like, what was I even ranting about? And that's when you have a ranting problem, when you don't remember what you ranted about. But I do have an issue I want to talk about this week, and it's just for some reason, and I don't know what it is, and it's largely social media, but there's just so much misinformation out there that gets peddled as fact. And what I'm specifically talking about is the story, right after the Super Bowl that said the Seahawks declined a White House invite. Now, by the time you may listen to this, maybe they will have. But Mike McDonald saying on Wednesday, the 25th, that they have not received an invite from the White House, nor have they accepted or denied that, and they'll decide as a team. But a week ago, everybody was like, the Seahawks deny this. And I don't know how it started, but it was getting out there from some big outlets. I hate to use this word because it's almost like a curse word, but some mainstream outlets. And it's like, how did we get here? Do your diligence, find out. And the fact that this sort of thing, this is not the first time this happens. It happens all the time now. And I don't know how it starts, but it's annoying as hell. I got to be honest with you, Chris. And that one was politically charged. And it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to play sides on that. I'm just saying that they didn't deny or accept it. And suddenly it was out there for a whole week. And so then 50% of the country's mad about it. Right. And it becomes a whole thing. If they decide it and then you want to be upset or happy about it, whatever, that's your prerogative. But it was all based on a made up fact. Yeah.
Sports is the great unifier, and it's been kind of frustrating in a way. And I think I say this objectively to see how things have been politicized so quickly. And that's objectively apolitically. And it kind of feeds into what I don't necessarily like this week, which is what we have seen with the discussion in Olympia about a new income tax, Millionaires Tax. I've covered it for KOMO News, and there's been scuttlebutt, for lack of a better term, online that it could deter the return of the Sonics to Seattle. As we cover every week here, the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has suggested that in March the NBA will move forward with some sort of process, expansion process, however they want to describe it, but moving forward in March, and specifically talking about Seattle and Las Vegas. So right away, everybody gets excited. Okay, this means it's a step forward. And now there's discussion that there could be a step back with a new tax in Olympia that the legislature and the governor appear to be supporting. So there is a question of merit there about whether this is the right thing for Washington State. But we want to kind of keep it on a sports level here.
Yeah.
And so we can talk about whether it will actually impact the return of the Sonics. So that's a nice segue to say, let's just go right into the Supersonic Minute,
I was
right?
going to say, hit the green button.
The green button. Okay, there we go. So I did have a chance in this last week to catch up with a Republican and a Democrat on this issue. And the discussion online is that, okay, if there is this tax that goes into place, players won't want to sign with the Mariners. They won't want to sign with the Seahawks. The owners won't want to set up shop with a new team in Seattle. So I asked questions specifically to the Republican from Allen, Travis Couture, who is the House Minority Finance Chair in Olympia, and April Berg, who is the Democrat from Everett and also leads the House Finance Committee. Here is how both of them answered questions about how this tax may impact the return of the Sonics. Part of the discussion online has been, okay, if there is this income tax, that may impact the return of the Sonics, or it could impact the Seahawks sale. But in other states, there's jock taxes, there's income taxes. The Dodgers sign every major free agent player available for millions of dollars. In California, with the high income tax and the jock tax, they still built a stadium for the Warriors. They still built a stadium for the Rams. So how do you answer that this would somehow impact the Sonics or the Seahawks?
Yeah, for our existing teams like the Seahawks, we all saw how Sam Darnold had to pay, actually on net, more money to attend the Super Bowl and play in it in California than he would have had to in our state. So I think for our existing teams, it has a more chilling effect on trying to get free agents into our state, because free agents in pro athletic sports do look at income taxes. That's why there's so many teams in Florida where there is no income tax. So it is a calculation. Doesn't mean that the Seahawks would necessarily go away. But if you're trying to attract a new franchise, such as a new Sonics team to Seattle, this is not just Republican concerns or moderate concerns. This is concerns of the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver for the long-term economic viability of places like Seattle, and not maybe just because of the jock taxes and an income tax, but also because of the sum total of all of the other taxes and policies that are happening in our state, especially maybe even more in Seattle. So it might harm our ability to get a new franchise, and many people, including myself, want the Sonics back. But we don't want to harm any kind of roadway or path that it takes to get those Sonics back. And stuff like this absolutely, does it stop it? We don't know, but it absolutely doesn't help the conversation when the NBA and the NBA commissioner is looking at the income tax and all sorts of other taxes, fees, and regulations and laws and policies that we have here in Washington State as potentially a hindrance for the long-term success of a new NBA franchise like the Sonics.
My final question is the argument that's been made that, okay, you pass something like this, the Seattle Mariners aren't going to be able to sign a free agent. The Seahawks aren't going to be able to sign a free agent. That people who are making over $1 million playing professional sports are not going to want to come here. That this is going to impact the sale of the Seahawks or the return of the Sonics. How do you respond to those arguments?
41 other states have an income tax. 41 other states have a tax similar to this on high earners in their state. So I think that argument just does not hold water. That is like saying that we clearly don't have professional sports in California, which has a much more aggressive income tax than us. New York, much more aggressive income tax than us. Illinois, I mean, the list goes on. There are 41 other states with an income tax. We are the outlier at this moment. I think we're going to be just fine recruiting very talented athletes across the board with this tax, just as those other 41 states are as well.
It's like I always say, I get my politics from Chris Daniels.
Well, and again, this is apolitically speaking. There's a discussion about whether it's the right thing to happen in Washington State right now. There are people that are for and against it. But in terms of the sports realm, I think their answers were interesting. I think in context, one of the other things to point out is that if that tax was to go into place as it pertains to the Kraken, The Athletic did a great piece back in 2024 talking about players in Canada that are living in the United States for 6 months plus 1 day to avoid paying the exorbitant taxes in Canada, and how that relates to the other teams in the league. We have seen the two Florida teams have great success in the last few years. We've seen the Vegas Golden Knights they don't have income taxes there.
Right.
And this has been an advantage for Washington State. But when you factor in a potential increase in income tax of 10%, that still puts the Kraken in the midpoint level of all NHL teams in terms of the taxes that players would have to pay based on the work that the Athletic did that I would encourage you to read. And also, as you heard the question posed to Couture there, the LA Dodgers have continued to sign everybody in free agency. Shohei Ohtani has had some deferred salary, but the latest signing, I mean, we're talking about tens of millions a year, and tens of millions a year that are going to go back to the state of California that has the highest income tax of any state in the country, plus a jock tax. Juan Soto signed with the Mets in New York for the biggest contract in Major League Baseball history. Didn't deter him from signing in New York. So I think the question is still open, and it's a worthy discussion to have.
Definitely.
But it's very early on in the process.
And worthy discussion to have. If you'd visited social media on this topic, it was like, Sonics aren't coming back. Nobody's ever going to want to play in Washington State from a pro level anymore. It's like, well
and the Seahawks are going to move.
No, they're not. But that's exactly, yeah. They're going to move now because of this. No, stop it. Thank you for listening to Inside the Arena and Chris Daniels, the rational talk and putting it in perspective.
I just think there's context to be had.
That's just it. It just needs to have a little context and not this. It's funny. Both our rants had to do with social media. It just is what it is these days, man.
Well, let's segue to I think what's a good conversation.
Yeah.
Dave Grosby, the Groz, who I think a lot of people know in this community from his decades of being in front of cameras and in front of microphones. He is here in Seattle, and he's talking about an event that's coming up related to Parkinson's, which is something that he has dealt with as an individual now for years, I think quietly, not necessarily in the public eye. You're going to hear more from Dave coming up after the break.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head up to Hawks Peak Sports Bar and Grill at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. The place to be for game days. With over 60 TVs, you won't miss a single play, no matter where you sit. Grab your crew, your favorite bites, and your go-to drink, and catch every touchdown, dunk, or goal in style. Hawks Peak Sports Bar and Grill, where every seat is the best seat in the house. Learn more at snowcasino.com.
All right, here we are with the one and only Dave Grosby, known to many listeners over the years in the Seattle area, a broadcasting legend on Sports Radio 950 KJR, on 710 Cairo, for years has been a voice for sports in this market. And Dave, I really appreciate you doing this.
Chris, it's a pleasure to be with you. You're doing a great job as you've been doing for what I read, 25 years now?
25 years in the market, believe it or not.
Wow, man.
Yeah, it's crazy, and we're still talking news. We're still talking sports. We have this beautiful podcast room inside the arena with Niko Tamurian and I, and we're just trying to meet the Groz with gas level. That's all we're trying to do.
Well, that shouldn't be too tough.
One of the for people who may not have been around during the Groz and Gas era, I can objectively say one of the best produced, best delivered pieces of sports talk on a daily basis in this market, and that's a credit to you and Gas.
Well, it's really kind of you to say. We had a lot of fun doing it, more fun than probably should have had. We're together for 15 years on the air straight, and then, been friends before and after. And Mike has really been a great guy as I've been going through my health issues, really been a great supporter, a great assist. And it was a great partner on the air, too. So we're one of those groups that we always got along. We never had any problems or anything like that. It was never that we never get along or anything like that. We always got along. And it was really, I think, genuine. And it kind of felt that way on the air. I think we kind of expressed it that way on the air.
And you were also, I mean, this was like peak Sonics, like the Sonics and the Mariners and saving the Mariners and all of that. What was that time like in Seattle with sports radio, with all of this happening around you?
You know, it was amazing, Chris, because it was really, sports radio was, no more than 10, 15 years old at that point, if even that old, and stations going for it all out. Only a handful of the country were doing it. We were in the same building as the Sonics then. We were owned by the Sonics. So we had George Karl, Gary Payton, and Sean Kemp around. You had, of course, Lou Piniella and the Mariners. I mean, I went over and worked over there for 3 years during the start of that, and was over there for the 95 season, as a matter of fact, at the Cairo before I came back to KJR. And it was just an amazing time here. It's funny. The Seahawks were third, maybe fourth. Maybe even the Huskies were higher on the totem pole than they were. But, they were on the way. I mean, they were on the way. They were 10 years away from a Super Bowl appearance finally. But it was a magical time, man. It was a magical time. We go into work and, you always hear, you walk into the building, did you hear what George said, Gary did, Sean said? I mean, every single day it was something like that. So it was amazing. And then, the Mariners with Piniella, was just an amazing character as well in that 95 season, which is a little bit like the Seahawks season this year, and that it kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, really came out of nowhere with the Mariners back then. It was, to sum up, just a really magical time, and we were lucky, really, really good timing to be here and to be in a situation where we could really have fun with everyone with it, because it was a great ride for Seattle. It was really the first ride like that.
Yeah. Is there, people often ask me, what is the deal? Why are so many people still hankering for the Sonics 18 years after they left? And what did that team truly mean for the community? You were in the heart of it. Is there any way to sum up in the mid-90s what that Sonics franchise meant to the city of Seattle? And you're in the same building with the owners?
And the players too. They came in there to get their checks at that time. It's hard to explain to people that weren't here, Chris, because the NBA is a different vibe, a different animal to it, a different beat to it all together. The season going through the winter, and then, coming out when spring was happening, and, you'd have it always struck me, you'd have the outdoor festival, I'm forgetting the name of it now, at the same time the NBA finals, or the Western Conference finals would normally start. You'd have this incredible eclectic group of people at Seattle Center, going to concerts and going to craft shows and going to see basketball games. And, it was electric. It was exciting. It was daily. So it really felt urgent and immediate. And, to me, I unfortunately have given up on the NBA. I mean, I'm not normally a person that carries a grudge, but I've carried a grudge against the league for all these years. It's just outrageous to me that they left in the first place, and even more outrageous that they're kind of, just teasing us, basically, just telling people, dangling it out there. And I don't think the NBA product is what it was. I mean, I see this thing where they're tanking games, and now even owners like Mark Cuban are saying that's okay. I don't understand it. I don't understand the appeal of it. So it's so far gone for me. It's just hard to explain it, except that it was electric and it was daily. And if you were here, you knew it. And if you weren't, I'm sorry you weren't, because it was really something different.
Yeah, you have been involved in a lot of things over the years. I remember talking to you, interviewing you back at FX McCrory's, talking about the Seattle Bowl. I mean, you
right.
You have seen it all, and you and Gas are, as you just mentioned off the top, still friends, still doing a podcast. What do you think of the current Seattle sports scene with what just happened with the Seahawks, and obviously the Mariners? A lot of people are going to think they're World Series favorites or AL favorites this year.
How different is that? I mean, that's just unbelievable. They were fantastic last year. I mean, it was just terrific to see Cal Raleigh, do something that had never been done before. And that kind of, you're asking me about what felt 90s like. Cal Raleigh's season felt 90s like. It was a Ken Griffey season. It was all of a sudden you realize you have one of the best players in the game. And, we knew it with Junior from the beginning. We saw it with Cal Raleigh last year, and he kind of surprised the people. I'm sure he surprised everyone a little bit. I mean, he wasn't bad, but to see a 60 home run season like him put that together, see that happening, and then having some success in the postseason, because it was always been the bugaboo. I mean, 116 games and not making the World Series. I know they didn't make it last year, but they came so close. There's every reason to believe they're going to be contending again this year. I think it's fantastic. I thought it was just a tremendous run. And then the Seahawks, just as good. I mean, Mike McDonald out of nowhere, a team that was looking all right, trying not to transition too hard, trying to make it a nice move to a different style of play. And then boom, they're in the Super Bowl and they win it. So it's been, in a lot of ways, it's been one of the best, if not the best sports season in Seattle, just because you've had those two teams really for the first time play at a championship level. And hopefully it's something that's going to happen in the next couple of years. I mean, hopefully it wasn't just a one-shot deal, although we've seen that happen before. So I'm not going to hold my breath, but I think it's going to be a good year for the Mariners this year. And I think the Seahawks look like they're going to be in good shape for a while to come. And that's really good news for this fan base who has supported them both really well over the years.
Yeah, we got the World Cup thrown in, and who knows what happens with the Sonics, although I know you've given up on the NBA. But, one of the things I remember when you were working, particularly at Cairo, is I'd be driving through Lake Union, and I'd say, hey, there's Groz. He's walking to work again. And I think we see the shirt about the walk. You've had some other stuff going on here over the last few years after sports radio. What can you say, or do you want to say about that?
I definitely want to talk about it. I started walking when I had heart surgery, which was back in, I think, 2003 or 2004, something like that. And I started immediately walking to work. And at that point, I was living in the U District, so I got to 10 miles a day for a while. And then I would walk to work. We lived downtown. We lived downtown here on the West Lake and Denny corner, basically, for the last 16 years. So I walked to work there. It was my way of trying to stay heart healthy, and it was great. And then, unfortunately for me, about 10 years ago, I had bypass surgery in my leg, and because I had artery disease, unfortunately. And after that, I had trouble recovering from it, and wound up having issues with depression and things like that because I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't sleep, and wound up getting the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, which I've had now for 8 years. And, it was at least understood what I had, which was better than not knowing, but certainly a difficult thing to get used to. My mother had it, and she really struggled with it, really struggled with it. And that's when I started to find out other things about it that a lot of people don't know. I didn't know that it's got a name. It's considered a boutique disease, in that it's different for everyone. So how it affects one person in your family, if you have it in your family, not necessarily going to be the way it affects you. So that was a relief because my mom had a really hard time with it. I've gone 8 years with it. It's getting tougher for me now. I definitely feel it getting to my talk a little bit, and my gait is really bad. I mean, I don't walk much at all anymore. I'm pretty much, confined to a wheelchair. I can walk a little bit, but still fighting the fight. I can still do some good for the Parkinson's Association in town. I am. I mean, it was ironic when I announced that I had it, which I did right when I got it. I got a call from the APDA's head, who happened to be a secretary of Joe Abel, a name I'm sure you remember, who was a guy who ran Cairo Radio for years and years. Who I'd known Jeannie Allenbeck for a long time. So it was nice to be able to make a transition when I was trying to deal with having the disease, to knowing someone involved with it. It was intricate. Well, she was running the APDA for that matter. So I got involved immediately in fundraising and trying to help out that way. And that's what I've been doing for the last 8 years.
You mentioned on social media that you're going to continue to fight Parkinson's, and that it's been different for you. I phrase this question for anybody else who has a loved one with Parkinson's or finds out recently that they have Parkinson's. How has it been different for you than, say, other people?
I'd say, for me, I don't have a tremor, basically. So, I mean, that's going to happen, I think, but I don't have it. Parkinson's affects, you kind of think of two ways. You tend to think of, remember the late Jim Marsh, who lived here and kind of had it like Muhammad Ali had it, where he didn't move, was very rigid. And then you see the Michael J. Fox example is the other person that most people know who has it, is very much herky-jerky with bradykinesis, which is another big problem with it, which I don't necessarily have yet. Now, I have the non-motor problems, and that's the other thing about Parkinson's. It is non-motor, meaning, not walking, just it's brutal in almost every way. It affects me with insomnia. It affects me with depression. It affects me, with incontinence and things like that. So, I mean, in my case, it's a variety of other things, along with, the stuff the typical Parkinson's stuff you expect, where, you're slowing down and you're not walking as well, you're not moving as well. So that's what's been happening in my particular case is that it's almost everything else that you wouldn't think that Parkinson's disease is bothering me.
And what have doctors told you in terms of long-term prognosis?
Well, there's no long-term, there's no cure to it. It doesn't kill you. You die with it, which is something that happens, and there's no way of getting rid of it. So there's not much they can tell you. You know, they're working on trying to, we've all been working on trying to kill it, but it's the fastest growing neurological disease in the country. It's every 6 minutes, I think, someone in the U.S. is diagnosed with it, and everyone knows someone with it or someone up close to them has it. And, you know, that's one out of 9 when I first was diagnosed 8 years ago. So, you know, it's not getting better. It's getting worse. And you know, they're raising a lot of money and trying to find a way to help treat it better. But really only one treatment for it at this point, too. So this has been a really tough disease for anyone to handle and to deal with. And, you know, the prognosis is it gets, you know, I have other things that are going on with me as well that weren't Parkinson's related, obviously talking about the heart issue. So I've got other things that are going to take me down before I think Parkinson's gets too dramatic in me where it's affecting my entire movement, all of that stuff. But, you know, I don't know. Doctors don't know. They don't know for sure. So, you know, you just kind of lower your head and plow forward if you can. I mean, you can't control how you feel, but you can control how you feel about it. You know, you can control about how you determine the way you're going to present it. You can't stop it from hurting, but you can stop it from showing that it can sometimes. And sometimes that's helpful to people and sometimes it isn't.
I appreciate your candor, and
Sure.
one of the reasons why we wanted to have you inside the arena is to talk about your passion and your passion for an event that's coming up where you're trying to raise awareness, trying to raise money. What can you say about that?
Yeah, the Magic of Hope Gala and Auctions. It's the signature event for APDA. It's at the get it right here, Sheraton Grand in Seattle, 5:30, March the 14th. All the Parkinson community is there. People living with it and their families and friends. And our theme this year is optimism, which is a tough word for people with Parkinson's to live by, but one of the things that we have to live by, we got to try to live by. So that's what the event is. I'm lucky enough to be honored by them. I'm not sure why, but I think it's because I've tried to raise money and try to do some positive things for it. And GAS is going to host the thing, which is going to be great fun for us. And you know, we're hoping it's the big fundraiser that they have going on. You know, they're hoping to raise $600,000, something like that this year. So I think there's still some seats available for it, and it's online at apda.com. All the information is there for you to be a part of the event, and we'd love to see you over there.
Dave Grosby, the Groz with Gas. They'll be reunited on that night as well. Thank you so much. I've been a big fan for so many years, obviously, and you've been kind to me over the years, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad that we were able to make this happen, to help get the word out and let people know how you're doing.
I appreciate it too, Chris. Thanks very much, and congratulations on your success as well. You've been fun watching you. I remember doing Sonic Skate with you, and when that whole thing went down, and you've done a great job yourself in keeping these people in tow, making sure they toe the line. You know, keep it up, buddy.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, man.
Thanks again to the Groz and Gas both for reaching out on that. And you heard the big event there coming up to benefit Parkinson's and Parkinson's
Support
research.
it if you can. Absolutely.
Well, we have done it once again. We finished 91 straight weeks in a row.
Dennis Rodman number.
Yes.
How about that?
Nice. Nice poll.
Yeah, grew up in the 90s, born in the 80s.
Well, you know who else's voice we have heard since the 90s?
Yeah. David Lee, take us out.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.